I had heard that he body slammed a reporter. I said, oh, this is terrible. He's going to lose the election. Then I said, well, wait a minute. I know Montana pretty well. I think it might help him. And it did.
President Trump defending a congressman's attack on a journalist because it worked to Republicans' advantage at the polls. It is not the first time we have seen this kind of scorched earth approach to the presidency. It was just last weekend on 60 Minutes. He defended his attack on Dr. Christine Blasey Ford at a rally where he publicly mocked her testimony.
You mimicked Professor Blasey Ford. You mimicked her.
Had I not made that speech, we would not have won. I was just saying she didn't seem to know anything.
But you seem to be saying that she lied.
You know what? I'm not going to get into it because we won. It doesn't matter.
Well,
we won.
With us to talk about it, all of it, Bill Kristol, a veteran of the Reagan and Bush administrations, editor-at-large of the Weekly Standard. What he's doing in Los Angeles, we'll never know. But, Bill, thank you very much for making time for us. I have to ask you about the ends justify the means. This is a guy whose name has been on a ballot once. What about the GOP members of Congress who come up every 2 years, who have to run different kinds of campaigns, and they have to run on the results?
Yeah, well, let's see what happens in a couple of weeks on the election. You know, it's just not true that these tactics necessarily are winning tactics. The Republican in Montana won a very close race and a race that should have been a 20-point Republican victory, as I recall. Kavanaugh got confirmed because Flake and Collins insisted on an extra week. The FBI looked. They, at least in Flake and Collins' judgment, didn't find anything that really confirmed Mrs. Ford's, account, and they felt they could go ahead and confirm Kavanaugh. It's not clear that Trump helped at all. There's not a single vote he brought over. So he takes credit for these things, and then he associates the victory in these matters, to the degree there are victories, with his rhetoric, and no one really rebuts him on the Republican side. I mean, that's what's so dangerous, I think.
Well, here's something else. We heard Rudy Giuliani say, no, it was Newt Gingrich on Fox News earlier this week. If they're successful in the run-up to the midterms, this campaign will be about 2 words, Kavanaugh, caravan. We got aerial pictures of the caravan between Guatemala and Mexico, this bridge of humanity. Later, we saw people jumping into the water. Bill, is this an issue that will cut well for at least the Trump base of the GOP?
I mean, the Trump people believe they won the Republican primary because of their stance on immigration, because of the stance on the Muslim ban, their stance on Mexicans, their stance on the border wall. I don't know if it helped in the general election or not. I don't know. We'll see if it, again, works. This is why this election is so important in 2 weeks. It's important, obviously, who wins the House, who wins the Senate, governorships, the usual reasons why elections matter. It matters who's governing the country. But it really is also will be taken so much, I think, by Republicans in particular, as something of a verdict on Trump. I mean, Trump managed to win in 2016 when people didn't expect him to. McCain had lost, Romney had lost. You could argue, so you're blue in the face. Obama was a much tougher candidate than Hillary Clinton, and there are all kinds of reasons that McCain and Obama and Romney lost. But nonetheless, Trump seemed to have the magic sauce that produced victory. If Republicans outperform this in a couple of weeks, if they hold the Senate and pick up a couple of seats and do less badly in the House, pull some surprises, then I'm afraid I see very little resistance, unfortunately, from my point of view, in the Republican Party or in the conservative movement almost, to these kinds of tactics, to this kind of rhetoric, even though it seems so obviously, in my judgment, bad for the country.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.